From its humble beginnings as a paranormal intelligence agency during World War II, the Department of Occult Warfare developed steadily over the next 65 years into the most powerful clandestine organization in the entire US military. Members of its Elite Special Forces Division, codenamed Jericho, were sent to take part in any conflict in which the United States was involved, working behind the scenes to protect the nation and its citizens from threats both supernatural and mundane. Korea, Vietnam, both Gulf Wars, Jericho was there for all of them, as well as for a few whose names will never be known by the general public. Based out of a series of rundown buildings tucked away behind the Army Chaplaincy Training School in South Carolina, the military arm of the DOW takes its name from the biblical story of the Battle of Jericho, in which 7 priests bearing the Ark of the Covenant circled the city once a day for 7 days. On the final day, they circled the city 7 times, and, after the 7th revolution, blew a mighty blast on the horns of a ram, releasing the power of the Ark and bringing the walls of the city crumbling to the ground. Just as the priests in the story, every Jericho operative is assigned to a team of 7 individuals, each one a specialist in one of the psionic or occult arts. They come from a variety of different backgrounds, though most of them have some form of military training and all share a distinct lack of immediate family. The department prefers things this way. No one to miss them. No one to ask questions. All of them are made to undergo an extremely demanding physical and mental training regimen, and each one must pass a thorough psychological examination before being placed on a team. Once a team is formed, those 7 individuals become each other's entire world. Unless they are assigned to work together, no team will ever meet another Jericho operative, and the only clue that other teams exist is the number their team is assigned. Outfitted with the most advanced technology that the military has available, the Jericho squads work to fulfill 3 major directives. 1. Advise and provide intelligence to the U.S. intelligence community through the use of psionics and other occult means. 2. Defend the United States and its allies from threats classified as paranormal, extraterrestrial, or beyond the scope of perceived reality. 3. Remain on constant 24-hour alert in the event of Operation Godseal. Though it is the primary reason for their existence, the members of Jericho are never told exactly what Directive 3 is, only that it exists. Information on Operation Godseal is extremely classified, and is given out only on a need-to-know basis. Now, thanks to the actions of a former Jericho operative named Arnold Leach, knowledge of that information is about to become necessary for humanity's very survival. Recruited as an invoker in 1962, Arnold Leach was a young talented caster with an insatiable hunger for power. Prior to joining the department, Leach spent his free time collecting and studying books of forbidden lore, and had already acquired considerable skill in calling up eldritch beings from before the time of man. With the training and resources made available to him by the DOW, he rapidly developed into a summoner of unrivaled power. However, over the next 2 decades, it gradually became clear that Leach was becoming more of a threat to the department than an asset. His unhealthy obsession with ancient powers and his complete disregard for others became apparent when his selfish actions caused a series of missions to end in catastrophic failure. Officially, Leach was expelled from the DOW. Unofficially, he was marked for assassination. But Leach was a charismatic man, and despite his dismissal, he managed to retain several allies within the department. These allies warned him of the danger that was coming his way, so that when the Jericho squad finally caught up with him in a crowded shopping mall in Dallas, he was ready for them. Among hundreds of innocent civilians, he unleashed a spell that shredded the fabric of local space-time, opening gateways to other dimensions and allowing unspeakable abominations to step through. Multiple Jericho operatives lost their lives in the carnage that ensued. By the time the survivors got the situation under control, Leech was gone, presumed to be either dead or trapped in another plane of reality, a victim of his own spell. Then, a few years later, a group known as the Brotherhood of the Dark Rapture emerged. Initially dismissed as just another fringe apocalyptic sect, the Brotherhood came to the DOW's attention after committing a string of brutal ritual murders and mass terrorist attacks all over the world. At first, these attacks appeared to be completely random. None of the victims had any relation to each other, and the targets of the large-scale bombings and gas attacks were in no way politically or strategically significant. Members of the group were known to possess both mental and supernatural ability, but no curses or invocations of any type were associated with the killings. Then, after a long and exhaustive investigation, the DOW finally found the key that started bringing the pieces of the puzzle together. Arnold Leech, the driving force behind the Brotherhood and the mastermind of all of its atrocities. After the failed attempt on his life in Dallas, Leech had gone into hiding, staying under the radar to encourage the belief that he had perished. While in hiding, he learned of the existence of the Firstborn, and knew at once that gaining this entity's favor would be his ticket to greatness. Quietly, he gathered a group of followers, like-minded occultists, that were easily swayed by his promises of power. Over the next 20 years, these cultists zealously committed murder after murder in the name of the Firstborn, waiting for the day when their master would walk free and welcome them to its side. But in order to achieve this dark rapture, the Brotherhood would have to cause a massive release of negative karma at a specific location among the ruins of Al-Khali, a 7-point intersection of ley lines that marks the entrance to the Firstborn's prison. From studying the legends and history of the ruined city, Leech knew that such a release was typically achieved by slaughtering thousands of people above the intersection. But in modern times, it would be almost impossible to get that many people there at once, especially with the DOW sitting right there on top of the dimensional fault. Leech, however, was a tantric caster, able to absorb karma and store it for later use. With this in mind, he carefully orchestrated a campaign of ritual murders, each one precisely timed and located to maximize the output of negative karma. Multiple murders in Baltimore, gas attacks in Sydney, a school bombing in London. Leech was sure to be present at each and every one, gradually building his karmic charge until he had accumulated enough to achieve his goals. 2 days ago, after 20 years of buildup, the Brotherhood finally made its move. Under cover of darkness, Leech led his entire cult, numbering almost 200 individuals, on a raid of Outpost Vigil. Because it was built primarily as a research and surveillance station, the staff at Outpost Vigil was not equipped to handle an attack of this scale, and as a result was quickly overrun. However, before Leech could shut down their communication systems, Agent Muriel Green, the DOW agent in charge of Operation Vigil, managed to get an emergency transmission out to the CIA headquarters in Langley, informing them of the Brotherhood's attack and requesting immediate reinforcements. Remote viewers stationed at Langley were able to get some psychographic images of the situation before Leech blocked them out, but from what they could see, it was difficult to say for sure exactly what the Brotherhood was doing there. After all, if they were hoping to free the Firstborn, they'd need a lot more than just 200 warm bodies. Meanwhile, back at the facility, Leech and his men had located the intersection and were getting ready to perform the ritual required to open the box. When everything was ready, the cultists took their places over the dimensional fault and, following Leech's careful direction, began inflicting horrible wounds on themselves and their fellows, letting their blood flow freely and their screams of agony fill the air. As the ritual progressed, chemical and bacteriological weapons were released to improve the quality of their suffering. Then, at the height of their torment, the cultists began taking their own lives, sending a rush of negative karma towards the waiting Arnold Leech. Finally, after everyone else had died, Leech committed suicide as well, and with his dying breath, all of the karma he had accumulated over the last 20 years was released in a single wave of terrible power. In its wake, only silence remained. At approximately 0400 GMT, every sensitive in the world felt a sudden shock as a wave of psychic anguish passed through them. US satellites monitoring oil pipelines in the Rube Alkali picked up an enormous discharge of thermokinetic energy, and further investigation revealed that an electromagnetic pulse had knocked out all communications in the region. 2 Navy F-16 fighter jets stationed on a carrier in the Red Sea were sent to get a better look at the pulse's epicenter, but were lost inside an impenetrable sandstorm that had suddenly engulfed the area. Elsewhere in the world, a series of bizarre phenomena hinted at the dreadful events that had just taken place. Beaches across the Mediterranean choked with dead sea life. Entire flocks of birds falling dead from the sky. Young children throughout the Fertile Crescent suddenly struck with inexplicable seizures and cases of hysteria. By 0900 GMT, the omens were clear. A simple message sent to both the U.S. Special Operations Command and the Department of Occult Warfare said it all. Code Jericho. The box is back. This is not a drill. Immediately after receiving the message, the DOW dispatched Jericho Team 23 under the command of Captain Devin Ross to fly to Outpost Vigil, find any survivors, and either prevent the Brotherhood from achieving their goals or undo any damage they'd already done. Nothing has yet been said about Directive 3 or Operation Godseal, but Father Paul Rawlings, a senior team member who worked with Leech back in the 60s, knows the legend of the Firstborn, fears that they may already be too late. And his fears are well justified. Leech and his men were indeed successful in their attempt to open the breach, and have already been restored to inhuman life by the grace of their dark patron. Thanks to his contacts at the DOW, Leech already knows that Ross's team is coming, and he waits for them with open arms. For, in truth, his patron is not yet entirely free, and it needs something that only the Jericho team can provide to complete its escape. According to the legend, the Firstborn will attempt to escape 7 times throughout history. On the 7th attempt, it will either gain the freedom it so desperately desires or be locked away forever. This, however, is a misrepresentation of the truth. In reality, the cycle of breaches will continue until the Firstborn is either permanently destroyed or finds a way to get what it wants. And what it wants, more than anything, is the one thing its creator refused to give it: an immortal soul. With a soul of its own, the Firstborn would finally be able to escape the bounds of the Pyxis, but in order to attain one, it has to absorb the power of 7 mystic warriors. Each time the breach has been opened, 7 mystic warriors have appeared to thwart the Firstborn's efforts, but each time they do, Enter Durunu seals it away again before it has the chance to absorb their powers. So, this time, it has decided on a change of tactics. just as it has called before to those who would seek to see it free. Now, it calls to one who would seal it away again. Captain Ross, leader of the Jericho team. If it can lure Captain Ross and the others past Antidorunu and into the Pixis Prima, the bottommost layer of the box, and the site of its original creation, it will have the chance to absorb their powers and, from them, craft a soul of its own. The 7 members of Jericho Team 23 are currently en route to Al-Khali, where they will make contact with Lieutenant Colonel Acklin on the Swiss Guard. For the past day and a half, Acklin and his men have maintained a defensive perimeter around the city and the unnatural sandstorm that surrounds it. From there, they will help the Jericho squad find a way to get inside the ruins. But after that, they're on their own. If the team is to complete its mission, it must act quickly. The political climate in the region is already one step away from meltdown, and the DOW fears that mishandling the situation in any way could provide the spark that ignites the keg. Furthermore, the longer the breach stays open, the further the Firstborn's corruption will spread. Within a week, it will reach out to encompass the entire globe, and all the world will become a hell just like the Pixis. The members of Jericho must find a way to close the breach before this can happen, but doing so means trapping themselves forever with the very evils they're fighting to contain. 4 groups before them have made that sacrifice. Will they choose a different course? Or will they fall prey to the Firstborn's minions before they even get the chance? If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Come and play with us forever.